On the evening of March 1st, 1932, the Lindbergh estate in Hopewell, New Jersey, was unusually quiet. The sprawling mansion stood alone on a windswept hill, surrounded by acres of woodland, its lights flickering against a cold, moonless sky. Inside, the most famous family in America was preparing for an ordinary night. But before the night was over, the name Lindbergh, already etched into history for triumph, would be forever linked to one of the most haunting crimes of the 20th century. Charles Augustus Lindbergh was more than a national hero. In 1927, at just 25 years old, he had flown solo and non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean, from New York to Paris. In the spirit of S.D. Lewis, it was an achievement that electrified the world and made him a living legend. Newspapers called him Lucky Lindy, the Lone Eagle, a man whose courage embodied the very spirit of modern America. He married Anne Morrow, the shy and intelligent daughter of a U.S. ambassador. In 1929, together, they became the golden couple of their time. In June 1930, their first child was born a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy named Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. The Lindberghs valued privacy. Fame had not brought them peace. Crowds followed them wherever they went. The mansion in Hopewell was meant to be a sanctuary, far from prying eyes. But that seclusion would also prove to be a terrible vulnerability. That night, Anne was in the nursery with 20-month-old Charlie. The toddler had a cold, so she tucked him in early. By 7:30 p.m., the wind rattled the shutters, and the nurse, Betty Gow, later checked in on him. He was asleep in his crib, wrapped in a blanket. Downstairs, Charles Lindbergh read in his study. At around 9:00 p.m., and also retired to her room, assuming all was well. At 10:00 p.m., Betty Gow went to check the child again. She found the crib empty. At first, she thought perhaps Lindbergh had taken his son downstairs, but when she asked him, his face turned pale. Together, they rushed back to the nursery. The blanket was still there, but the boy was gone. On the windowsill, a white envelope caught the light. Inside was a crudely written ransom note. The letters were uneven, some backwards, all in poor English. "Dear sir, have $50,000 ready. After 2-4 days, we will inform you where to deliver the money." It was signed with 2 interlocking blue circles, a red dot in the center, a symbol no one could explain. Charles Lindbergh grabbed a flashlight and ran outside, the March airbit at his face. Beneath the nursery window, he saw impressions in the soft earth. There were footprints, one set leading to the house, one away. And there, lying broken in pieces, was a homemade wooden ladder. Whoever had taken his son had climbed to the second-story nursery in the darkness, entered silently, and vanished just as quietly. By midnight, the Hopewell estate was swarming with police. Reporters arrived soon after, their flashbulbs lighting up the night. America awoke to headlines the next morning that stunned the nation. Lindbergh baby kidnapped. The case was unlike anything law enforcement had faced before. Here was the child of the most famous man in America, stolen from his own home. The ransom note was the first of many to follow. Days passed, and the country seemed to hold its breath. President Herbert Hoover ordered the FBI to assist. The New Jersey State Police took the lead, with Colonel H. Norman Schwarzkopf, father of the future Gulf War, general in command. More ransom notes arrived, each demanding more money. The amount rose to $70,000. The notes insisted that the Lindberghs not involve the police, though they already had. They also claimed the child was safe and being cared for. In a desperate move, Charles Lindbergh authorized the involvement of John Condon, a retired Bronx school principal known as Jafsy. Condon placed an ad in a local paper offering himself as an intermediary. To everyone's shock, the kidnappers responded. Meetings were arranged in the shadows of Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. Condon met with a man calling himself Cemetery John. He was described as having a German accent, wearing a dark overcoat and a fedora. He accepted $50,000 in gold, certificates, bills whose serial numbers had been recorded. In return, he gave Condon a note describing the location of the baby. Lindbergh himself, circling overhead in a plane, searched the area given, but there was nothing, no child, no clue. Weeks dragged on, and then, on May 12, 1932, a truck driver walking near a road just a few miles from the Lindbergh estate saw something in the brush. It was the decomposing body of a small child. The head was fractured. The coroner confirmed the worst. It was Charles Lindbergh Jr. The child had been dead for over 2 months, likely killed the very night of the kidnapping. The country's grief turned to outrage. The case was now a murder investigation. For 2 years, the trail seemed cold. Then, in September 1934, A routine police check at a gas station in New York turned up one of the gold certificates used in the ransom. The attendant wrote down the license plate number of the customer who had paid with it. That plate led to a Bronx carpenter named Bruno Richard Hauptmann. When police searched Hauptmann's garage, they found over $14,000 of the ransom money hidden in the rafters. They also discovered wood that matched the homemade ladder used in the kidnapping, grain for grain, nail hole for nail hole. Handwriting experts claimed that Hauptmann's writing matched the ransom notes. Hauptmann was arrested, insisting he was innocent. He claimed the money had been left with him by a friend named Isidore Fish, who had since died. He denied ever meeting Condon, denied being Cemetery John, and denied any involvement in the crime. The trial began in January 1935 in Flemington, New Jersey. It became a media circus. Reporters from around the world packed a courtroom. The prosecution painted Hauptmann as a cold, calculating criminal who had killed the child to avoid being identified. The defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial, the handwriting analysis flawed, and the latter match not definitive, but the jury took only 11 hours to convict him. On April 3, 1936, Bruno Richard Hauptmann was executed in the electric chair. To his last breath, he proclaimed his innocence. The Lindbergh kidnapping left a scar on America. In its wake, Congress passed the Lindbergh Law, making kidnapping across state lines a federal crime punishable by death. The tragedy also drove the Lindbergh family into near seclusion. They eventually moved overseas for a time, fleeing both grief and the relentless public gaze. But questions linger to this day. Was Hauptmann truly guilty? Or was he a convenient scapegoat for a nation desperate for closure? Some historians believe others were involved, perhaps even a larger criminal network. Others suggest Lindbergh's own fame may have clouded the investigation, pushing police to find anyone to punish. What is certain is this: the night of March 1, 1932, changed the Lindbergh family forever and marked a dark chapter in American history. The crime had everything: celebrity, mystery, ransom, betrayal, and above all, heartbreak. It was called the crime of the century for a reason. Thank you for watching Crimes Through Time. If you found this story haunting, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest moments. And tell us in the comments, do you think Bruno Hauptmann was truly guilty, or has the real kidnapper's identity been lost to time? We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay safe,